Okay, Louay, I suppose the question has to be, if it was Al-Qaeda, why an anti-American group would attack an anti-American government? What's your view on whether this could be the work of an armed group?
Let me say first that this was a very horrible attack. My heart goes to the victims and their families and the Syrian people who have been suffering a lot over the last 10 months. Now, to begin with, really, the government has no credibility for us to rely on their reporting. Added to that really a lot of the details that were provided don't add up. For example, the timing, the fact that it looks like the last floor, there was a lot of smoke coming out of it. It looks like it was a center of bombing there. Some of the details that provided, including discovering that it was Al-Qaeda operation after only 50 minutes. So all of that makes us suspicious of the version provided by the government.
So who do you think carried it out then?
Well, I mean, probably we'll not be able to tell until the government is replaced. I mean, this government cannot do investigation and has been putting out lies, including lies that were put by the foreign minister in trying to provide very graphic pictures to frighten the people. So we can't tell exactly who did it.
Okay,
although
Louay,
there is a lot of suspicion
I'm sure you're
that the
aware
government is
that some
implicated.
activists are saying that this was actually the work of members of the government. Some activists are saying that the twin bomb attacks were planned by those within the government. Omar Khani of the Syrian Revolution General Commission says, "We have 2 eyewitnesses who are still working in the regime that are ready to name the officers who planned the operation, and they will speak in court as soon as we can grant them and their families full protection." So, Louay, I mean, it's a very harsh assertion to say that the government itself was responsible for carrying out this bombing that killed 44 people. But is that what activists are saying?
I wouldn't be surprised having seen what the military troops, the Syrian military troops, have done in Homs, in Idlib, and in the north part of Syria. So there has been a lot of graphic, killing previously. I mean, if some evidence is presented, then this will underscore the disparity of the regime, trying really to confuse particularly the observers who have been sent we were hoping that those observers will help protect the civilian from the military, but it looks like that with the government scheme, they are trying to confuse them and create more killing.
But why are you so sure that these attacks weren't the work of the Free Syrian Army, Louay, or another anti-government group? I mean, intelligence buildings have been attacked before.
Well, as I said earlier, I mean, no one can tell with certainty at this point without additional evidence. So I'm not saying it is for sure the government. What I'm saying is that the version, the narrative put out by the government, and some of the footages that we have seen on the Syrian TV make us suspicious that the government is implicated in this attack.
Okay, you've taken a pessimistic view and said President Assad is just using the Arab League as a way of stalling, trying to play for time. What do you think about the fact that he has finally allowed observers into the country?
I mean, if this attack was orchestrated by the government, really, I'm quite surprised to the extent to which that this government is willing to go in order to remain in power and to undermine any effort to bring a political solution. I agree with Mr. Kablan that the problem is a political problem. It's about freedom, participation, and accountability. But the government is intent on suppressing all those calls for political solution and wants to use a military solution. This has become evident, and while I was a bit, I have some optimism that maybe those observers, if they come with large numbers and if they were able to visit different locations in Syria, that they may provide protection for the civilians. But now I'm convinced that with this particular regime, there is no solution. The Arab League is not capable of dealing with it. We have to bring international weight to bear on the regime, And I would call for international investigation. I think the United Nations, the Security Council must put together a team and send it to Syria and force the Syrian government to accept it, to investigate, to know who was behind this killing. It was very horrible, attack, in a very secure area within the capital.
Louay, you were saying that the international community should do more. Do you get frustrated when you see the divisions amongst UN members over Syria?
Absolutely, absolutely. And this regime feels that it's protected by the Russian veto. I hope that the Russian, of course, this move by the Russian is quite an improvement on its previous stand, but still is protecting this regime. The Russian leadership must wake up and realize that they are protecting a regime that is killing the civilians.
Well, I mean, but Russia does make the valid point that an arms embargo simply means that the government doesn't get arms, but every other armed group who wants to get hold of them can get hold of them. I mean, Russia is concerned about other armed groups running around Syria. That's a fair point, isn't it?
Well, the major armed groups are linked to the Syrian regime. I mean, the regime realizes that this has been a very peaceful revolution, and they're not comfortable with that. So what they did, they armed some groups and let them loose in the country to justify the use of military force in the name of calming those armed groups. For the first 2-3 months, there was at all no military attacks. And we have seen what happened in Hama and Homs when there was no military units or security units. Those towns were very calm.
Do you share Marwan's view that the country is slowly or even quickly sliding towards all-out civil war? What do you say to that, Louay? Do you think this problem can be solved without outside interference?
Not at this point, because Iran already heavily invested in this conflict and trying to protect this regime by any cost. That's completely discredit this revolution that talks about being on the side of the weak. So I think already the regime is receiving support from the outside. Those who are not receiving any support are the peaceful demonstrators who have been killed in cold blood by security forces, and nobody stands for their rights. So I think at this point it looks like the internationalization of the problem is going to become greater and greater.
Okay, well, let's go back to the Arab League team, the first members of which arrived in Damascus just before those car bomb attacks. The spokesman for the US State Department, Mark Toner, condemned those attacks, saying it was crucial they didn't impede the critical work of the Arab League monitoring mission to document and deter human rights abuses with the goal of protecting civilians. We hope that this mission will proceed unfettered in an atmosphere of non-violence. Louay, it's an atmosphere of non-violence, so that's not very likely, is it?
Well, as long as the regime, has a free hand in using violence against peaceful protesters, then I think, ultimately we'll need the international community to take responsibility for what's happening. Already at least 5,500 civilians and more than that, really, in terms of the actual number. These are the documented cases. So and thousands of people have been arrested, tortured. Other thousands of people have disappeared. So I think the situation is very critical now. Even many villages and many towns don't have electricity. They don't have fuel for heating. And so the outside world must take responsibility. Unfortunately, the opposition tried hard to stay away from bringing international presence into this conflict, but at this point it looks like the regime is completely out of its mind.
Okay, very quickly, because we're running out of time, Louay, last word to you. What is the most we can expect from the Arab League monitoring team there?
Well, I mean, we have seen that the sanctions that imposed by Arab League was not respected by major countries, Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon. And what the regime did is to pass on those sanctions to the people. For example, now the fuel that's used for heating in Syria is being diverted to the military, and people are without heat. So it seems to me that the Arab League must take this now case to the Security Council and ask the Security Council to use its own to make a decision to make sure that the Syrian people are protected.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Our guests, Louay Safi in Doha